Welcome to the epic of sword, stone, and sacrifice. In this video, we are tracing the rise, the absolute zenith, and the defiant resonance of the Chauhan dynasty of Ajmer and Ranthambore, spanning from 1105 to 1301 AD. Our story begins by laying the foundation of the Sapadalaksha realm. The first prominent figure is King Ajayaraj, who ruled from 1105 to 1133 AD. He famously founded the city of Ajmer in 1113 AD and established it as his royal capital. Militarily, he successfully defeated the invading Gajan Matango forces. He was also a patron of faith, commissioning the golden pot, or Kalash, for the Parswanath temple. He was succeeded by Anoraj, ruling from 1133 to 1155 AD. Anoraj engineered the famous Anasagar lake by damming the Chandra river to sanctify a battlefield against the Turks. He also built the Varaha temple in Pushkar. He was a powerful diplomat and warrior, defeating Narvarman of Malwa and Siddharaj Jai Singh of Gujarat, ultimately forging a Chalukya alliance by marrying his daughter, Kanchan Devi. He acted as a patron to scholars like Devabodh and Dharmaghosh before his life was tragically cut short, assassinated by his own son, Jagdev. Next, we enter the golden apex of the Chauhans. The realm was ruled by a man who was both a conqueror and a scholar king. Revered by the martial title, Baisaldev, he achieved complete military dominance by defeating the Tomars of Dhilika, or Delhi, and the Chalukya king Kumar Pal. The Delhi Shivalik pillar inscription even declares that he exterminated Muslims from Ayavarta. But he wasn't just a warrior. He was known by the literary title, Kavi Bandhu. He authored the renowned Sanskrit drama Harkeli, which was inspired by Kiratarjuniyam. He was a great architectural patron, building the Saraswati Kanthbharn in Ajmer, which later became the Adhai Din Ka Jhopada, and founding the city of Baijalpur. He also provided royal patronage to Somdev, who authored Lalit Vigraharaj, a text detailing the king's romance with Princess Desala Devi. Following the Golden Age, the dynasty faced a volatile succession and complex ties with the Chalukya dynasty. Prithviraj too had a reign defined by sheer muscle power, a fact documented in the Ruthi Rani temple inscription. He built the Suheshwar Shiva temple and appointed his maternal uncle, Guhil Kilhan, to secure Hansi. Then came Apargangya, who endured a brief and highly unstable rule after the ousting of the patricide Jagdev, before being rapidly overthrown in a power struggle. This led to a critical transition under Someshwar. As the son of Anoraj and Chalukya queen Kanchanadevi, Someshwar was raised in the Gujarat court. He married Karpuri Devi of the Kalachuri dynasty and proved to be a prolific builder, constructing the Vednath temple and the 5 Kalpavriksha temples in Ajmer. However, his premature death forced yet another early and volatile succession in 1177 AD. This brings us to the ascension and consolidation of the Boer Emperor, Prithviraj III, who ruled from 1177 to 1192 AD. Prithviraj assumed the throne at just 11 years old. The realm was ingeniously secured by the brilliant regency of his mother, Karpuri Devi, acting alongside highly capable chief ministers named Kaimas and Bhuvanmal. Despite his youth, he moved quickly to consolidate power. He suppressed his own bloodline, swiftly crushing his cousin Nagarjuna's localized rebellion in Gurgan by decisively defeating Nagarjuna's commander, Devabhata. He also crushed external threats. In 1182 AD, he launched a major campaign to suppress the Bhannak tribe rebellion across the Hisar and Gurugram regions, completely securing his eastern flank. With his borders secure, Prithviraj III stepped onto the regional chessboard, but his expansions came at a heavy price. In 1184 AD at the Battle of Nagaur, he clashed fiercely with Bhima II Chalukya of Gujarat over territorial expansion and a bitter dispute regarding a marriage to Princess Ichivi Devi of Abu. Earlier, in the 1182 AD War of Mahoba, also known as the Tumul War, he defeated Parmardidev Chandel. Legendary Chandel commanders Alha and Udal were killed in this conflict, and Pajunare was appointed as the new governor of Mahoba. He also engaged in the Gahadwal dispute, a bitter rivalry with Jaichand of Kannauj over the succession of Delhi. This rivalry was dramatically fueled when Prithviraj kidnapped Jaichand's daughter, Sahyogita. While these aggressive regional victories proved tactically brilliant, they were strategically disastrous, ultimately leaving Prithviraj III completely diplomatically isolated. This isolation proved fatal during the Terrain rupture. The first battle of Terrain in 1191 AD was triggered when Shahabuddin Gauri brazenly captured Taba-e-Hind, or Bhatinda. In response, Prithviraj forced a decisive and overwhelming victory. Gauri was severely injured by Govindraj Tomar of Delhi, and Qazi Ziauddin was captured, only to be later released for a hefty ransom. But the tide turned in the Second Battle of Tarain in 1192 AD. Gauri returned with a reformed army. The Chauhan forces were outmaneuvered and completely shattered. Prithviraj was captured near Saraswati, modern-day Sirsa. Interestingly, Hasan Nizami's historical text, Taj-ul-Masir, records that Prithviraj briefly ruled as a subordinate vassal before his death. Let's examine the anatomy of this civilizational defeat. The Rajput suffered from severe vulnerabilities, complete diplomatic isolation with zero regional allies, the crucial absence of top generals like Skand and Udayraj who were engaged on other fronts, and a devastating internal betrayal by Someshwar. There was also a massive tactical mismatch. Rajput forces relied on slow elephants and heavy, cumbersome weaponry. Turkish forces, on the other hand, deployed highly mobile cavalry, light weaponry, and operated under a strictly unified command structure. The macro consequences of this defeat were world-altering. It caused the permanent collapse of Rajput political ambition to control Delhi. It marked the beginning of continuous, centuries-long foreign and Turkish rule in India. It led to the widespread destruction of vulnerable Hindu and Buddhist monasteries. Eventually, it led to the painful birth of a new Indo-Islamic common culture that would profoundly affect Indian architecture, painting, and music. Yet, the pen endures, and Prithviraj III left a lasting cultural legacy. He is revered by the titles Raipithura and Dalpangal, and he built the imposing Pithra fort near Delhi. He was a patron of institutions, establishing a dedicated art and culture department, which was highly visionary for its time, headed by Minister Padmanabh. He supported a matrix of legendary scholars, including Chandrabardi who wrote the Prithviraj Raso, Jayanak who wrote the Prithviraj Vijay, as well as Vagishwar Janardhan and Vidyapati Gaur. The historical verdict dispels the myth of him being an immature general. In fact, he never lost a single war prior to 1192. Ultimately, he fell victim to honoring traditional, inflexible Hindu martial ideals, such as forgiving enemies and not attacking retreating armies, against a ruthlessly pragmatic adversary. Following the fall, the Chauhan dynasty shifted its bastion, creating a phoenix state. Ajmer was violently captured by Qutb-ud-Din Aibak. Prithviraj's uncle, Hariraj, briefly and fiercely rebelled but ultimately perished in a fire, marking Ajmer as a fallen city. However, a new foundation was laid when Govinda Raj, the son of Prithviraj III, escaped to establish a newly independent Chauhan state at the impregnable, elevated Ranthambore fort. His successors, Valam, Pralhadan, Veeranarayan, who was later killed by Iltutmish, Vaghabhata, and Jethra Singh, successfully defended this new ancestral bastion against repeated, relentless incursions by the Delhi Sultanate. The most legendary of these Ranthambore kings was Hamir the Defiant, ruling from 1282 to 1301 AD. He executed a grand, Wheel of Digvijay, military campaign, consecrated via the massive Koti Yagya, which was led by head priest Vishwarup. During his conquests, he defeated Samar Singh of Chittor, Bhoj Parmar of Dhar, and Arjuna of Bhimaras alongside Pratap Singh of Abu. He also successfully extracted tax from Mandalgarh. Early in his reign, he showed incredible defiance, brilliantly thwarting massive invasions by Jalaluddin Khilji in 1290 and 1292 AD. Jalaluddin famously retreated, bitterly claiming in Amir Khusro's Miftah-ul-Futuh that he did not consider such 10 forts equal to the hair of a Muslim. But this defiance became the catalyst for a final, devastating siege. Alauddin Khilji, driven by relentless imperial expansion, wanted strategic control over the crucial trade route connecting Delhi to Gujarat and Malwa. He also harbored a burning desire for revenge over Jalaluddin's earlier humiliating failures. The direct catalyst from Hamir's side was his decision to grant total refuge to Muhammad al-Shah and Kehbru, Mongol rebels who were fleeing Khilji. Hamir chose the certainty of total war over violating the sacred Rajput duty of protecting an asylum seeker at all costs. In 1299, Khilji dispatched an advance force led by Ulf Khan, Alap Khan, and Nusrat Khan. Hamir's brilliant generals, Dharm Singh and Bhim Singh, ambushed the Turks in the rugged Hinduvat valley, killing Nusrat Khan. This forced a furious Khilji to travel and take personal command of the siege. This led to the tragic events of 1301 AD, the first Sacker of Rajasthan. Phase 1 was marked by betrayal. Inside the starving fort, Generals Ratipal and Ranmal turned traitor, critically sabotaging the defences and sealing the grim fate of the defenders. Phase 2 was the ultimate sacrifice. Queen Rangadevi led the Johar, which was the very first recorded in Persian, detailed by Amir Khusro in Khazin-ul-Futuh. Princess Davalda committed Jal Johar by jumping into the Padam pond. Finally, Hamir led the fatal Kesaria charge into the enemy. Phase 3 was the fall. On July 11, 1301, Alauddin Khilji captured Ranthambore, handing the smoking ruins to Ulf Khan. Chronicler Amir Khusro declared, "Today the house of the Kafra has become the house of Islam." Though defeated, the 32 pillars of Hamir's legacy still stand. In his court, Hamir actively patronized esteemed scholars including his Guru Raghvadev and Bijaditya. He was also an author himself, writing the text Shringarhar. His great physical monument is the magnificent 32-pillar cenotaph he constructed at Ranthambore to permanently honor the 32-year reign of his father, Jethra Singh. But his true immortality is literary. His defiant legend was kept alive forever through epic texts like the Hamir Mahakavya by Nayan Chandra Suri, the Hamir Raso by Jodraj, the Hamir Hatha by Chandrasekhar, and the Hamirayan by Bhandav Vyas. In synthesis, we are left looking at the burden of sovereign ideals and fatal adherence to tradition. Both Prithviraj III, who forgave Gauri in 1191, and Hamir, who granted sacred asylum to Khilji's enemies, effectively engineered their own downfalls. They chose to adhere strictly to traditional, honorable Hindu martial codes, refusing to compromise even when facing highly pragmatic, ruthless adversaries. The historical verdict is clear. While this adherence was tactically devastating, directly leading to the catastrophic fall of Ajmer and the brutal Saka of Ranthambore, this uncompromising dedication to absolute sovereignty forged an enduring cultural mythos. Though defeated in battle, these Chauhan kings achieved total immortality in literature, cementing the defining, tragic ethos of Rajputana for centuries to come. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe, like, share, comment, and press the bell.